Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Worldhoppers. Today we are going to do worst love scenes. So I did this video recently and I thought it'd be fun to recruit some people who either read a lot more romance or who are known to be very picky about the romantic scenes that they read. So Mara thought it would be a good idea to start by mentioning what the point of a love scene is. And then we can talk about when we deviate from that point or what doesn't work. So, Mara, because this was kind of your prompt, do you want to go ahead and elaborate on that?
Yeah, so to me the true function of a sex scene in a book is character development. Like if it's non-erotica, let's say, um it's by the end of the sex scene there should be the characters know each other better, we should know the characters better, we laugh, we cry, whatever. And then if it's meant to titillate, that's a different kind of tone and sex scene. But I would argue most romances are not actually really, the intent is not usually titillation per se. Could be a side effect, but that's not like the narrative function. Heather, I don't know if you have thoughts about that.
I definitely think that it depends on, is it indie? Is it traditional? What is that author's style, I guess? Because some authors have, sex scenes first page, first chapter, and or they have it like every other 3 pages. Whereas there are some where it's like, this is like our love, It's like a completely different feel. So I do agree, for the most part, sex scenes are meant to, prove that you have a couple that is progressing through the stages of a relationship and you're watching them go through those stages of relationship and grow closer together and grow to the point where they want to spend ideally the rest of their lives together for a romance book, right? And sometimes it's meant to be like kinky, smutty, over the top, don't do this at home, all of that. But
Can't
it really
be.
depends what you're into.
Yeah, yeah. And some of them are like purposefully crazy. Some of them, like, that the fun of the scene is that it's insane. Like
Right. Some of
either
it is
from a
like,
kinky perspective or like a
I
campy perspective.
right. You as the reader probably don't want to try this, but like if you didn't fear imminent death, what if we did this and it was a fun time and everyone lived?
True
Yeah.
fantasy, you know?
What if you're living in a sci-fi romance and your partner has 4 different penises?
Listen, if
I
they
don't
have
want to experience that, but like
appendages,
I kind of
who
want to read
knows?
about it. Yeah.
Or what if they were blue and built specifically anatomically for your pleasure?
That's
What
right.
if you have a campy good time reading about these himbos who have
Right.
anatomy like a
Can
rabbit
I just
vibrator? Like that
can
just
I
sounds
just
hilarious
say
and fun.
I
Yes.
love the word himbo. I love that word. It's just such a perfect what its purpose is. Speaking of the point of something, just the point of that word, the purpose of it is it just sounds exactly like what it's supposed to represent too, beyond just
Yeah.
its
Right.
meaning. Anyway,
And I
um,
love a himbo. But yeah,
Roger,
anyway.
did you want to contribute or add to the point of a love scene for you when you're reading?
Um, I guess I don't know. It just very much depends on the book, kind of like Mara was saying, because I tend to try to find more LGBT type romance books, and so I don't always want the kind of heteronormative, like, oh, we banged, now we have to live together forever, that I think is more common in romance. So I kind of appreciate when the point isn't just showing like the development of their relationship, because sometimes it's okay to just do it in the back of a car and move on with your life.
I mean, listen. I'm not going to disagree with that.
Yeah.
That actually,
Yeah,
well, we're talking about bad love scenes, but I actually really like that. In You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akweke Emezi, it like starts with a bang, and it's like intentionally like a Stella got her groove back kind of moment of like,
Mhm.
okay, my husband's dead and I've not been with anybody, but you're hot and we're at this party. Can we are we
Right.
swearing in this one?
You can whatever you're comfortable with.
Let's fuck in the stairway. Like, let's just do it. Like, and I was like, yeah, okay, wow, that was quite a way to start what I, was like a traditionally published book. I would expect that more from an indie, but
Right.
Yeah, I think too with them, and again, I know we'll get in direction of scenes that we just think are awful. But sometimes I mentioned in my video with Joe Abercrombie that the intention of one of the scenes, it's meant to be so incredibly uncomfortable, and it's just like one noise after the next of dialogue. And it's just, it happens, and it's very physical, and there's not really a ton of emotion. And the way it's brought up too is like, do you want to do this right now? And they're like, I mean, okay. And it's just, and it's not like, to your point earlier of like, oh, we get to know the characters better and they're gonna build more. And it's not, it's just like, yep, this happened. And it's such an awkward scene, but it's like intentionally that way. And there's also sometimes there's scenes that like you're meant to be like, ugh, but it's because it's showing a really uncomfortable encounter, not something that's violent or anything like that, but just things don't go well. And so it's an experience to that point of you get to know the characters better. It's almost like there's this very relatable, for some people, this is a certain situation that will happen, or it's not always going to go well. And that isn't quite probably what we're going to be talking about, because there are instances where you'll read something and you're like, ugh, that's just awful. But it's realistic, or it's something that probably maybe like it's something the author is pulling from their own experiences or something like that. But I did want to kind of touch on just almost like pet peeve type of just why is this always a thing? I'm kind of wanting to pull your thoughts here. Do you want to start with just your absolute worst, or do you want to start small and then build to absolute worst? Because I thought it'd be fun. We could also just talk about words that instantly ruin the scene for you, because I know some people are very picky about which words are used in scenes.
Yeah.
The cat, one of your cats, is very into this conversation.
I mean, Hastings has some very strong feelings about how much he does not like purple prose in love scenes. That's my pet peeve. I don't like it when it's like cresting or like his velvet steel. I don't know why that's a thing like that. I've never encountered a velvet textured member. I'm sure that they're out there. I think you probably should go to the free clinic if you have this, but that is what I really don't like, is like the velvet covered steel, or like her glistening cave or whatever. It's like, I would much rather you just use the words. Like,
yes,
I'm an adult. Just
Amen.
use the words.
I've never heard that one though, I gotta say.
Well, you've not read enough 90s romance.
I have not. That's true.
The list is never ending on the possibilities.
Yeah.
Heather, are there some for you that as soon as you see that word, you're like, ugh?
I have a few. It's not even so much words. I have this personal pet peeve where they're like, oh my God. And then the love interest is inevitably like every single time.
I already know what you're going to say.
My name is not God. And I'm just like,
God. I would, if somebody said to me, I would literally, whatever, it would stop. Mid-thrust, we would stop. I would put my clothes on and go home. Like, I refuse to spend another moment with somebody who would say that.
This is why I really wanted you two, because I'm like, they have so much more experience reading this. I've never read that before, and I didn't even know that was a thing.
All the time.
I certainly wasn't prepared.
It's always like a cocky dude bro who thinks that he is God's gift to women.
Mm-hmm. I'm not.
So
God,
it's that.
God's not my name. God's not the one making you come. Like, what? It's some version of that line every time. I'm just like, can you not? Can you not? I hate it.
I would not like that either. I would love it though if in those scenes, if the person was like, I mean, I don't remember your name, so I'm just being vague.
Oh, no one. I've never read that, but I would love that.
That'd be
great.
wonderful.
I was trying to be polite. Sorry. just immediately take all the confidence away.
Right.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, Bob. My name is Dave. Oh, well, sorry.
I feel like Roger. I feel like you have some words or pet peeves.
I really don't like it. They come up with the weirdest ways of describing or referring to a clitoris on a woman. It's always like a nub,
The
or like like, I mean, I'm obviously not particularly familiar with that piece of anatomy, but also just like, and then also I always have to wonder. I always just get curious because women are always like so wet. It's like Niagara Falls, and I'm always just like slightly concerned because it's always just like everywhere, and I'm like, are you just like soaking through the bed? Like it takes me out of it every time. And then the best example of this is in Anita Blake. They refer to as a rainmaker, and every time they say that phrase,
Oh my god. What?
I gotta say, there's been a fair amount of Worldhoppers videos so far this year where I like basically start crying from laughing. But this time it's like I even sound like, because I'm still sick, so it even sounds like I'm crying.
I mean, yeah, there's a especially in indie romances, there's like a insta wet thing that will happen sometimes, and I'm like, it's like they'll make eye contact and it'll be like, I got wet, and I'm like, you probably need to see someone about that. That's like
Right.
real. That's a lot. Like that is
It like
we're using a very
weirds
weak
me
bladder,
out,
and we're like
honestly.
that's not the correct sensation that I think that you're feeling.
yeah.
It's like we're in an Olive Garden. Why are we?
The breadsticks are just, they're so good, you know?
Just like
Ma'am, this is a Wendy's.
I don't need to know that you felt flutters. Like, can we just keep moving?
Yeah.
I mean, to answer your question, Roger, it's not like gushing waterfalls.
I was just
I mean,
like super soakers or something like.
I mean, it's like everything else. Like there's a range of normal and things like that. But sometimes books are just, there's something all right.
I will say, I get excited when people put lube in their books. I'm like, thank you. Like, normalize lube. Justice for lube.
This is like my greatest gripe in life is that if you are doing backdoor play, a lot of times in romances, you don't need lube because you have love. And I'm like, that's not how that works.
Love is not lube. That is not lube.
He's the one. Doesn't mean you don't need to do any prep at all. Like, can we not?
Especially when they like surprise them with it. I'm like, that is not a surprise. Like, that's not something you want to surprise someone with.
He's the most massive being you've ever seen. They've never done it before because, of course, they've never done it before because this is their one true love. We have to save something for them.
Well, that is like for the 2020s. That's like the new virgin. Like you may not be a virgin, but you're a backdoor virgin.
But,
so like,
it's a this thing. One's just for me, and it's like.
No.
And then you're massive, and then you're just going in there all willy-nilly, like nothing.
Yeah. No problem.
I should have brought like the popcorn. I knew I wouldn't have to really participate. That's why I was like, it's okay that I'm still sick. I'm not going to need to say a whole lot.
I hope nobody. I assume people saw the title of this and are not letting their children be around here. This is Worldhoppers After Dark.
I know. I have like the 18 thing.
Yeah,
I'm still trying to like censor it for like ads and stuff. So it could be worse.
We waited until like 5 minutes after we started to really start. Yeah.
Don't forget we have merch in case
really adorable narwhals.
No.
Don't let the narwhals know. So Roger, I know there's we have a little like narwhal like little mascot for Worldhoppers.
Yeah.
And it looks very innocent is what Roger's talking about. So there was no like implication with what I said.
I wonder, but
I mean, yeah.
I've never read like a sci-fi like a narwhal type alien romance, but that is an opportunity for someone out there.
The closest I've ever gotten was the Mary Gentry series has the Selkie who turns into a seal.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I don't like aquatic shifters. They don't do it for me.
Never.
I mean, shifters in general, it gets real weird, especially when they
Never.
shift during, and then you're starting to cross
Listen.
the lines into.
There was
I will
this
say
one.
that I don't love a shift during. I'll
Yeah.
agree with that. I can
Yes.
do a lot of weird things in my speculative romance, but that's
There was-
not.
Okay. Listen, there was this one. It was a werewolf romance. It was indie, so they can just do whatever they want, right? No one's there to censor it. And she didn't know that werewolves existed or whatever. And so it was one of those ones where he was a regular humanoid man, and then he was a regular like wolf, maybe slightly larger than reality, but just, you couldn't tell by just looking at them that they were supernatural, right? So the one morning she like wakes up to like some doggy tongue action, and I was like, what is happening right now? Because I can't. I cannot. Actually, I really need you to be bipedal and like at least like not, if you're gonna have animalistic features, I need you to be in a humanoid upright form. So for me in my brain, I'm like, this is fine that you have fur and fangs, but you can't actually look like an animal, even though
But then the velvet covered makes more sense. If you're furry.
That is true. That actually does. You know what, Roger? That's a good point. There's like a fantasy creature loophole for the velvet covered steel because there very well could be.
Yeah.
I think there is something about like I really don't like it when they shift during. I think because it does feel too much like animal versus if they are like an alien who like has a dog head but talks
right
and is otherwise upright. To me, like whatever, that's fine.
Right.
Because it feels like they're sentient. There's something about
because
they
don't exist.
Yeah, it's like I'm living in a world where there's like like an upright,
right.
snake.
That's a good way to put it, Heather. If it actually exists, then it's weird. I mean, it's all weird, but that I feel like that's when it crosses into
that's my line.
Right, that's my line as well. Like,
yeah,
this is where we are.
Yeah. It's fine if they shift and it's like, oh, I gave him a big hug while he was a wolf. Okay, great. That's fine.
Right.
But it should not be.
But don't be a wolf while that's happening. Yeah, I think that's fair. So I have another similar, it's not words or phrases or anything necessarily, but it's kind of what we're getting into, which is it's fine, but it has a pet peeve of yours. Like, what is something that you feel like a lot of people like, or you get why, or you try to get why people like it, but for you, you're like, I just don't like this.
So I understand this from a narrative perspective, but I just don't like it in a contemporary or historical. When they go to Pound Town, everybody has finished, and then immediately he's ready to go again. Like in a speculative romance, again, I can just be like, he's an alien. I don't know what his rebound time is like. I don't know what the species is like. But for an average human man, like 5 times back to back with no break, A, sounds like a yeast infection, but B, also just seems like it takes me out of the flow of the story.
Right.
But I know people like it. I get it from like a narrative perspective if you want to have like an extended sexy time scene, but
right.
And that's also what foreplay is for. You could just spend more time doing that, and then
mean, not wrong.
Heather.
Okay, I really strongly dislike food with sex. I just cannot do it. I can't tolerate it. I don't even really like thinking about it. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, no. But there was this one recently. In fact, I just read it this month. I don't know why we did this, but she like really wanted to try eating donuts off of his rod, if you will. I was just like, why? What are we doing? And she's just like, looked around, and I was like, what?
That feels like a distraction.
I was like, right.
Did they try like all circular shapes? Like then they have
Right.
bagels.
They were
to
like
go
talking
after?
about which type of donuts would like have a larger hole and would work better and stuff.
Did they do like
Is
a
that how
ring
you-
toss?
Is that how you make donut holes? You just like push it through.
They were like, well, we obviously can't do a filled donut. And I was just like,
Oh my gosh.
I don't need to be here for this.
I don't want to hear about the logistics of your donut selection right now.
It was something. I did not have
So
a good time.
what donut did they settle on?
I don't even remember.
A classic
Oh my
glazed,
God,
I would,
still have
you
it
know,
on my Kindle. Let
Seems
me see.
appropriate.
It was
you
towards
don't want
the end.
anything with like the powdery, like the cinnamon sugar that's too rough and coarse, right?
Yeah, no,
Mm.
That
they
can get in places.
They were
Don't want
going
that.
over the logistics.
So
Might as
Heather,
well
you're
put
not even down with
sand
like
up
a
there.
little whipped cream, little like
No, I'm really not.
Okay,
Not at
okay.
all. It's not that I can't read it necessarily, but I always wish it wasn't there. And then for me personally, you're never going to get that from me. So sorry if that's your desire in life. You're gonna have to find someone else.
What about for you, Roger? What is? I mean, I know some of your pet peeves, but if you want to share with the good people what some of your pet peeves are,
I think he might be frozen.
I was gonna say, did we lose him?
Oh, maybe he's coming back.
Am I back?
I think you're
can
back.
hear you.
Okay.
I was just asking, what's one of the pet peeves for you?
I 9 times out of 10 in romance books, dirty talk does not do it for me.
Hmm.
It's always just really weird and uncomfortable, especially if we're talking like balls deep or fuck yeah. It's just like I can't. Like every time I get to it, it's just like
I feel like Roger needs to narrate some romance audio.
I forget, Roger, were you recording with us that one time that after the recording, Jess was showing us? Do you remember? Does this ring a bell? I think Mara was there, right? Mara, you were there. I'm
I
pretty
don't
sure.
think so.
Were you not? Sometimes there are narrators who will have on their Patreon a perk where you can.
Yes, I do
Okay.
remember this.
Yeah, you can have one of the Patreon perks that you can pay for like $100 or something, as you can have them read a scene. I don't know if it's like a scene you send them or they put your name in or what, but they'll read it to you. So Jess was showing us one. She didn't pay for it, but
Her friend
had sent it to her because her friend had paid for it, and it was. I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty uncomfortable.
It's not even like it's not even narrating like really a scene. It's mostly just groaning. It was
Yeah.
the most uncomfortable thing I've
Yeah.
experienced on BookTube for sure.
Yeah, it's Oh, go ahead.
I did find the donuts, and you'll be happy to know it was chocolate dip donuts with sprinkles. So that's what they
No.
landed on.
No.
So
If
that was the
anybody
best.
makes it this far into the video, let us know what would be the right donut flavor for this activity.
Yeah, put that in the
Like you almost want
comments
just
with
like
no
plain
other
cake to not get
context.
infections.
Yeah. No, in the comments, just put a donut flavor, and that's those who know will know.
The 23 and up marker
Yeah.
of the video.
This is just reminding me of when Al and Deshaun were talking about, what was it, the Jennifer Armentrout series where she tastes like fruit, and then you guys
Honey
went on to
knew.
this whole tirade about wondering if she like rubbed fruit on herself.
So that's right. Yes, I was saying, I jokingly was like, I mean, is it like how some people put deodorant on their thighs to prevent chafing? Like maybe you like rub fruit down there and then it ends up tasting, which we were like, that'd probably do the opposite of relieving chafing pain. But yeah, I don't. For me, that is one of my pet peeves is when they start telling each other that they taste like things they don't taste like. Because I'm just like, they don't though. They don't taste like these things.
It wouldn't be weird if they did. Like,
yeah, it'd be really weird.
Yeah,
Unless we're in weird alien land, then fine.
Again,
Maybe he does really taste like strawberries.
I can suspend my disbelief if we're, on some space planet where like they're settling a new colony and I've already accepted a lot of things to get to this point, so that's fine. But
Yeah, I think I definitely share that with you, Roger, where a lot of the talk. So I feel because I think that falls under talk. It's like it's creating this feeling and this atmosphere, atmosphere, I guess, if you will. But I think that sometimes it takes me out of the story because it's just so silly and it. Because I think back to the original thing we were saying at the beginning is what's the point? And I feel like a lot of times the point is sort of to build momentum almost in this moment. But I'm just like, okay, I don't know. You don't want it to be too clinical though at the same time. So I think it's hard to find a balance.
I think it's like very idiosyncratic, the dirty talk. Like there's some people who really like I'll hear like, oh, this author, like they write really good dirty talk or whatever. And I'll get into it and be like, not for me.
Right.
So I think it's hard, you got to find the right level of communication that works for your reading tastes.
Right. Yeah, I think romance can be more difficult to find your own taste because you have to find the type of story you like, the type of writing you like, the type of characters you like, the type of relationship dynamic that you like, that you can tolerate, that you're not like, I hate you. And then on top of that, you have to like their sex scenes. And that's a lot of things to enjoy that really needs to just be your taste. It's not that it's bad. It's just, it's either really not for you or like it really works for you. So it'd be difficult to find.
Yeah.
So to that point, what is, if we want to start mentioning specifics, or you can still keep it a little more vague, but a scene you don't understand like anybody liking? Because there's some things where it's like, okay, I can kind of understand why people like that. But what are the things that you're like, I truly don't get? You mentioned earlier, like anytime the shape shifting happens and then it's a real thing. So we kind of discussed that, but are there other instances where you're like, no, I don't know why? Or is there a specific scene you can think of that people love and you just don't understand why?
Okay.
I always appreciate the amount of effort that Mara puts into her answers.
I know. I've already thought about these.
Go for it, Heather.
What's going on here? Okay. This was in my worst books of the year video, right? But I was reading this paranormal romance and it was Why Choose. So you have 3 guys and they are the 3 heads of Cerberus, the dog that guards the underworld for Hades, right? And in this particular story, they're also mafia members for some unknown reason. They've been exiled from the underworld because Hades and Persephone's daughter was really into one of them and like lied and was like, whatever. Okay, they're
This
outcast.
sounds amazing. I'm not gonna lie. Like
So
so far, you've sold me.
The 3 fates bring their mate to them, and she's like a thief, and they catch her, blah, 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 blah. The only reason why they are interested in her, as far as I can tell from the story, is that she's their fated mate. So, of course they are, but whatever. So they have their man forms and they have like this monster form. You can kind of picture an avatar, like they're 7 feet tall, have the heads of like dogs, that type of thing, like claws, but still humanoid, right? So we have established in our storyline that she cannot take all 3 of them at the same time, and particularly not in their avatar forms, right? They're bigger. Okay, that's fine. Physics, gotcha. Well, then the 3 heads of Cerberus can combine and make the dog that guards the underworld, who is
kind of like Transformers.
He's as big as a house, is how it was described. And so, for some reason, you have this dog-like body. You have one dog body, right? He's got 4 legs, 1 tail. But he has 3 heads. So far I'm with you. We've all seen this imagery, right? But he also has 3 cocks. And I don't know why we need 3 cocks for one body, but we have 3 cocks. And mind you, they're huge. They're huge. But also, they're all attached at the base at the same place, right? Like,
Oh my god.
only so much give there. You know what I'm saying? So then
And wait, he's the size of a house?
That is, I swear to God, it's in there somewhere. Maybe I'm like picturing things wrong, but I recall him.
I mean,
being like the
even
size of a
if
house.
he's not, it's a lot. But like that,
Right.
I don't know.
So,
Now we're
we
into sort of
already
like
know.
the taken by the Triceratops territory if he's the size of a house.
This is another one of those times where like she doesn't need prep, right? But they're all three attached, and somehow she's going to take one in each hole at the same time. Like, how do you bend? Because these two, like the two holes, like they're close together. I can kind of understand that, although they're too big, so it doesn't work. But then, how do you like bend over and also get number 3?
You needed a diagram. Heather needed a diagram to go along with this particular
I'm
story.
just saying, like I was literally in my living room yelling at my husband, like, this doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. You can't do that.
Some people
You're like
are
drawing.
Some people are bendy.
Yeah, some people are really flexible.
I know, like, but at the same time, like, your holes don't move on your body, you know? So, like, you got the 2 holes that are pretty close together. And then this other hole, logistically, I don't
You know those
understand.
videos people make now where they're like explaining the entire plot of this show and they have like the board,
Yeah.
all the things. That's what you need. Like you need to draw everything out so we can figure out how this works like a puzzle.
Yeah.
So
But,
as entertaining as that was, it was also really fun to watch Roger's face as you were telling that story.
Especially because he froze a couple
Right.
times. So he froze and kind of like very perplexed.
Well, because I started trying to picture it, because I'm like, oh, well, maybe she's like contortionist, so like these 2 holes, and she
Right.
bends over backwards to get to the third.
Right.
Maybe Cirque
Yeah,
du Soleil
like
up in there.
the Cirque performers that like fit in boxes, you know? Maybe she's
I can't.
Heather,
I can't
this
get
is
past
probably-
this.
Really
That
tough.
he's the size of a house. This is where no contortion is going to help you if he is the size of a house.
We already
Is this
established
user
that she
error?
couldn't take them. So why could she suddenly take them when they're so much bigger? It doesn't make sense.
What did we end up happening? Like what ended up happening? Did we end up having a good time or was it like
Oh, that was the like
Was she
finale.
dead
That was
afterwards?
the end of the book. We have killed off Hades and Persephone's daughter without consequence. Even though you were exiled from the underworld because of her, and now you can just kill her and you don't think like anything's gonna happen to you? I don't know. So I was lost in that as well. And you know, she had set her up and she'd been taken, blah 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 blah, the enemy, yada yada, and then they come in their giant form and they save the day, and then they have sex in the driveway.
everybody's
All
favorite
through the good
place?
time, so it was very
be in.
So
exciting.
not only is she taking this house-sized, 3-headed, 3-cocked dog man for the first time, she's also doing it on the driveway
Yeah.
in front of God and everyone.
And they were like, like they couldn't even
The
talk.
neighbors.
The neighbors. Like,
It was a wild time.
which, to be fair, if that was happening in my neighborhood, I would watch. Like, I would just not for titillation, for science. Like, what is happening?
You gotta get out your opera glasses and just be like, interesting.
Exactly.
Like a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Oh, wow.
once again.
I feel like I can't top that. I'll share one that I read recently that it made me
Goodness.
DNF the book because I
Oh,
didn't
yes.
understand. So the theme of this is like what I would describe as serious dubcon. So I can get into dubcon if it's campy and over the top, and the author
What
is
is
like,
Dubcon?
oh, sorry, dubious consent.
Okay.
The
So,
beginning
like-
of Ice Planet Barbarians.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
that's not dubious. There is none.
Well, but like you have, so in dubcon, like you're in the heroine's perspective enough that you know, or that whoever
That they
usually
want it. It's
yeah.
just not verbalized.
Yes,
It's one of those things that cannot exist in real life,
exactly.
but in the storyline, you're in their head.
Yeah, there's a lot
And-
of like literary theory about how like the reader is serving as like the heroine and giving like, and it's a whole thing. But anyway, that's actually a pretty mild form of dubcon. It can get pretty like stalkerish or like R-wordy.
Mhm.
And I can't vibe with that if it's serious. If it's campy and it's almost like role play, like you feel like both the heroine and the hero kind of know this is role play, I can kind of go along with it. But I was reading one the other day, and it was the hero was a Naga, which I
Snake
was
person. Fun.
I was not aware of this as a thing until recently, but it's been a very big trope in fantasy romance. And Nagas are basically snake men.
Mm-hmm.
So like a gigantic snake, and they usually have like a little hidden portal where the comes out.
It's called a cloaca.
It is, yes.
For science, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Because everything happens in one hole. They poo, they pee, and the fun times come out.
Yep. It just and this Naga was living in a house that was abandoned, or that looked like it was abandoned. He's living in a town where 20 years ago, this mad scientist gave them all a potion at a Halloween party and turned them into fantasy creatures. So he's been a reclusive billionaire in his in his mansion ever since. And it looks, and he's not been taking care of the house because he's a snake man. So he has like a little, he doesn't need it to be nice. So the heroine is running away from somebody or other and is like, oh, like she stumbles upon this abandoned house and she breaks in to spend the night. And while she's asleep, his comes out for the first time in years, and he ends up finishing and he takes it and rubs it on her face while she's sleeping. And I DNF'd it at that point because I was like, sir.
Like a
I was gonna start
moisturizer.
sprinkling the gif of that dog with prying the mouth open.
Yeah, I just was like, this is too far for me. Like, if she was awake and like if she had woken up and seen him, you know, going to town on himself and was into it,
Right.
I could have rolled with it at that point of like, okay, this started off not good, but she's into it. Okay. I had to DNF at that point. So anything that's like that where I'm like, okay, I can't like this fantasy even for you. Like,
Right.
I don't believe that you want this, so I can't want it for you.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I think you did a good job of having your thing, because you said you didn't think you could top Heather's, but I mean those are pretty straight.
Yeah. You go a lot of weird places in indie fantasy romance. There's a lot of I'm sure Heather's seen more shit than I have, but I've seen some shit out there in the streets, in the Kindle Unlimited streets.
Right.
Hopefully not like actual. Hopefully there's none of that getting spread on people's faces. But I wouldn't put it past.
I wouldn't put it past people. I haven't encountered it, but I am sure it is out there.
Yeah, Roger, see, don't you feel like we're just so innocent in the things that we...
No, because I can think of really horrible, horrific sex scenes that I've read.
You read
Oh,
Anita
okay.
Blake. You've seen some things.
Oh, Anita Blake isn't where it gets really weird. It's the Mary Gentry series where the shit is real weird. So, in that vein, there is a man who is part fairy manta ray kind of guy, and these manta ray things have tentacles, and so he has a patch of tentacles on his stomach.
Yeah.
So there is a
Sure.
scene where he is injured.
It's
which
like
is already kind of weird.
Chekhov's tentacle. As soon as you see it on him, you know.
Yeah.
You know that this is gonna.
He has multiple, and some of them have suckers on the tips of them. So
whoa. Okay. Yeah.
So there is the scene where he is injured, almost dying, and for some reason he's still in the mood because okay. And like, so there is the scene where
Love
he does like
conquers all.
little like Hoover
Right.
vacuum with his tentacle sucker. But that's not the worst I've ever read. The worst I've ever read was in The Haunted Vagina, because oh my god.
That cover is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life.
So, for context, the woman has a womb world. There's a world literally within her womb, and you can get through there because her vagina is basically a portal to her womb world. So there's a point where she is forcing her boyfriend to go on an expedition to search her womb world. And so he starts going in, and he's not doing it fast enough. So I kid you not, she stands up and like sumo squats on him to get him to go in faster. And then the feeling of him going in somehow is titillating, is your favorite word. So then she starts kind of rubbing places on herself. And then you start getting descriptions of how it's like kind of closing on him and he can't breathe and he gets like shot out into her womb.
Wow. Wow. Was that's not, was it sex though? I mean, I guess if she touched herself. Okay. Yeah.
That
You know,
was a-
not
Mara,
all
you don't
sex
need
is
to get-
penetrative. Yeah, that's true. Okay.
Like Mara's like, does it
Though I
count?
guess it
I'm not
was
sure it counts.
it was like the most penetration she could possibly have, I guess, technically.
Oh my word.
She has to compete with like the girl from Heathers, you know?
Well, was this written by a woman or a man, Roger?
A white man? I mean, who are we kidding? Who lives in,
Because
like,
this makes
Portland
me
or
think
something?
of the like Freudian, like the fear of like being eaten by a vagina. Like it's like a Freudian thing.
They're like, there's a term
Yeah.
for it.
What is it? Ooh. Yeah, there is a term for it. I can't remember, but that seems like a real like.
What is the term?
The
There's one in
far-
Hyperion. The sci-fi classic.
Vagidenta something.
I just call it when it turns into a shark. That's what I call it.
Now I'm just thinking of that movie where they called it like vagina dentata or something.
Yeah, I think it,
Yeah.
I think it's what it is.
Yeah.
Like vagina dentata. Yeah, it's like an extreme version of that. A
Except it was
womb
also
world.
vaguely racist because for some reason she was Asian, and the reason she has a womb world is because her people were starving at some point in the past, so they like mutated and developed this
Of
as a
course.
way for them to keep their people safe. There was choices were made in the writing of that.
Keep
Right.
your people safe.
Nothing
Oh,
like
wow.
a little casual racism with your.
Because then you only the one person has to eat food, and she can support everybody.
Does she like give birth to them all again? So at some point when there's no longer a food
They
shortage?
can. There is a scene where he tries to come back out, and she's driving, and she screams at him, "Not now!" and like clenches her legs so he can't escape.
Oh my god.
So it's not really the haunted vagina, it's more like the inhabited vagina. Like it's not really like it's not like a ghost.
It's a hostage situation.
I mean, weird things happen to them when they're in there. Their skeletons like leave their bodies and they turn into like weird rubber people, which is what the girl on that cover is. It's a time. It's a time. It's a thing that I read.
Wow.
It's a thing that you read. I don't know how. I've never heard about this.
Well, I knew the cover. I reacted to the cover once because I saw it on a list of like the worst covers ever.
Yeah.
So I was aware of its existence, but I had no idea that's what it was about.
And
I
just
just-
to give you an idea how white the author is, his name is Carlton Mellick III.
So very white.
Like
See, okay.
Chad would be the only name more.
What is this book? Because you just reminded me, Roger. One of the books I read back when I was writing my thesis and I was trying to look for like out there romances, Ritual of Proof by Dara Joy. It's kind of a similar situation because it's a version of Pride and Prejudice, except it's gender swap. So like the women have all the power and the men are like debutantes. And the men all have like a membrane on their peen that can only like that has to be melted the first time that they
So it's like a dude
Do
version
it?
of a hymen.
yeah.
Right.
So like there's a scene where this man is like strapped down and his woman is like astride him melting the membrane with her vag.
I like how you like did a little dance.
But it's the same sort of like the vag eating. It felt metaphorically in the same line
It does. It
as
seems
like
connected.
yeah. It feels like the same fantasy, like the same kink.
I just,
Right.
I got to go back to, I was not expecting after all the bizarre things that Roger was already saying about that story that he was like, well, then there's some casual racism. Like, I just
On
wasn't.
top of all of it, also racist.
Jeez.
Oh,
It was a time. It was a time reading that.
what a
I
time to be
believe
And ever
Wow.
since I read that, now I have this one person who's like, we should buddy read Squeak, where I guess their members are balloon animal.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard about that one. Quite a bit about it, actually.
Wait,
so she's like,
how?
I don't know. I think we've decided that we're going to do a seasonal weird erotica book club. So I
Oh
think
man,
that's the
How
one
can
Shannon
it
wants to
be?
do.
I need to know.
I'm
This
down
is
for that.
more
Let me know when that
baffling.
happens.
This is more baffling to me than the house-sized individual /
I
trio.
feel
I
like
mean, this is when you
we've
start
been
slipping
some
into
places.
Kindle Unlimited weirdness with like. There's also like the weird like Halloween monster ones where there's like the jack-o'-lantern head and his
Yeah, that's fine. I don't
ejaculate tastes
how
like
is
pumpkin
it?
spice.
That
How
feels
is
more.
it?
That feels way more normal to me than anything
It does
that
to
we've
me
talked
too.
about.
How is it? I just need to. I need to know how they're balloon animals. Like,
I'll let you
So,
know. I'll let you know
okay.
when we
think
read it,
they're
and I'll tell
balloon
Mara too
animal
that
shifters.
can they
she can
change
beat it
the
with.
shape?
They're
They
balloon
like
animal
They're
shifters.
they're balloon animals, and then they can shift into a man, but then their member is still latex.
Got it.
I believe.
Well, you know,
I have not
it's
read it, but I've heard some in-depth reviews.
there's
in depth.
There's a weird Kindle Unlimited logic to that to me that actually makes complete sense now.
It's like, oh, okay.
Right.
Well, then in that
Like,
case,
oh, okay, that makes
You
more
know-
sense to me than
I
just
gotta
them having.
say, sometimes when I describe the plot of the book Scythe, where I'm like, oh, and then we've conquered everything in regards to death, with the exception of overpopulation, and so mankind's solution is to have scythes that like kill people. And I'm always like, it's really far-fetched. You just gotta roll with it. I never will feel bad about describing that book as
no.
far-fetched
Yeah,
ever
No,
again.
no,
Like
no,
it's
no.
just I'm like, this is totally normal. In fact, society's like a decade away from this, right? It just feels so normal compared to these things.
No, that's way more normal. Or like the Omega verse that I've been hearing about.
Oh, that's
That sounds like a time.
a
Read
journey.
a
Have you-
Megaverse.
yeah.
What's
Well,
this
okay,
one?
here's a question. Did you guys?
Elle
did you
doesn't know
guys
what
grow
Omega
up?
verse is. Go
What is
for
this
it,
one?
Mara.
Well, I was just gonna say, did you guys grow up reading like fanfiction.net?
No, we didn't have internet at my house for a really long time.
So this
Same.
is probably part of why this feels normal to me is because like all of this just feels so fanfiction-y
Right.
in a way that I love. Like it's campy, it's bizarre, it's something that nobody would ever traditionally publish, but like somebody out there, 20 years ago, instead of having a Kindle Unlimited
Right.
They just wrote it up on
Squeak Toy shifter romance, they would have had a
Squeak.
200,000 word fic on fanfiction.net about this, and it would have been amazing, and people would have been like waiting for the new installments all the time. So like
I
this
feel
actually
like-
completely tracks for me.
I feel like the balloon animal thing is different than the squeak, because now I'm just thinking of like a toy for an animal that
Oh,
squeaks.
sorry.
But the book
Which
is
is-
called Squeak.
Okay, now, but see, that can be its own thing too. Is like you got to discover the squeaker on the inside.
Well, maybe it's the squeak. Like when you rub a balloon and it kind of makes
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking
noise.
too.
I assume
That's
that's
the sound
probably
every time they're doing something like.
it's gonna be
Does
some
the hair
very
get
no-
staticky too? Is that
Probably.
We'll report back when we've read it.
if it involves using your mouth? Do you like your voice get squeaky?
That's
or anything
exactly what I
from-
was about to say. We need to create a bingo card, and that has to be the free square. Is after she
course.
blows him, she has a helium voice.
That's hilarious.
In that case, if you're describing taste, I feel like there's probably some pretty, aren't there? Yeah. Anyway,
Well, like condoms can be like strawberry flavored, so why not?
Yeah, that's where I started, and I'm like, I'm gonna stop, and then thank you. We were on the same wavelength.
Yeah,
there.
we're right there together. You would do well on AO3.
Believe you.
So this is, I haven't even asked what is the absolute worst. I asked a scene you don't understand people liking, and that's what all of you presented. I didn't even bring up absolute worst yet.
I'm trying to think of what the
Is there
worst
anything that can
is.
top those? Those
Well,
are pretty great.
I'm gonna say the worst to me are just like boring ones, where it's just like tab A into slot B, and it's just like
Right.
I don't know.
If I
you don't
decide
learn anything about the characters. It's the least sexy thing you've ever read. It's
Might as
boring.
well have
You
faded to black.
yeah, you like. I wish it had faded to black. That to me is the worst. I would much rather read about Sybaris fucking their fated mate in the driveway or a haunted vagina. That's at least like interesting.
Is it?
Yeah.
Entertaining, definitely.
Yeah. I don't know. That's my worst. What do you guys think?
Well, I agree with you, because if I'm reading and I decide to go to sleep in the middle of your sex scene, that's not a great review. But do you all want me? Okay, do you want me to go to the weirdest thing, or do you want me to go to the worst, where like you lose faith in humanity?
Weirdest.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, or
Both.
both. Yeah.
For one of my friends' birthdays, I can't remember whose birthday live it was. It was either Bookish Realm, Novelty Corner, or I know it wasn't Happy for Now. They did a different one. They force-fed me a novella, an erotic novella, that was taken by the Tetris blocks. And in this book, you have Tetris blocks, which are aliens. And it turns out that Tetris was actually made in Russia. So the Tetris blocks have Russian accents. And you have this weird boss babe who's
In
like,
Mother Russia, Tetris does you.
she's like, I am doing so much for this gaming company, right? I deserve a raise. And then she goes to the boss, and the boss is like, no. And she's thinking, and he's thinking, they're both like, you could sleep your way to the top, but you have too much character. And I'm like, do you all know how things work? You don't earn respect by sleeping your way to the top. Like, that's the worst thing you can do, because people love to slut shame. But no, she could be at the top of her game, but she's not that kind of girl. So instead, she cries and she goes down to the basement. And in the basement bathroom, there's a Tetris block that is being used for the countertop, but they're leaving today for reasons we don't know. So it's like the L-shaped Tetris block. So she starts banging it out with him, and then his friend, the
what
V-shaped
size is
Tetris
this
block,
Is
floats
this
into the
human
bathroom.
sized? Is this human sized, or is it like
it's sketchy? It's real sketchy. They're like,
okay?
I don't know. And then
I'm just trying to get a sense of
or
scale.
maybe he's T. Maybe he's the T Tetris block, and then Z comes, and then finally L comes, and they have like a foursome, and then you end this erotica with the news that there are some hard corners in her stomach, and she is pregnant with the Tetris block. So that was great.
Wow.
That was one of the worst experiences of my life, and I'm so happy my friends forced me into it. Love that for me.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. I am just stuck on like why there's actual Tetris blocks IRL.
They're aliens.
They're digital.
No one knows
they're digital
why
creations.
they came. They like to be helpful and like take the place of blocks sometimes. No one's ever seen them leave. They float around. There wasn't a lot of in-depth world building. It was like 16 pages, but
okay.
Aliens, they arrived one day and they're Tetris blocks with Russian accents.
All I can think is when I was a kid, I had what looked like a massive Game Boy, and it was just for Tetris. And
now you never know what could have happened.
My childhood is like completely gone.
Well, this is part of why I'm stuck, because I'm just like, when I think Tetris, I'm thinking of like a digital, like,
yeah.
So why are
why are they Russian?
Why? Well, no, that's actually the least of my worries. I'm just trying to understand like why they're a physical version of the Tetris blocks. It would have made more sense to me if this was like Legos.
Yeah, because then people actually.
Yeah,
those are like really small.
Suggestion for a follow-up to that author.
They have a lot of stuff. I wasn't on the live for it. Well, I was, but I had to leave and go do something else. But on Happy for Now, her birthday live, at the end, they read another one by this guy. And it was reamed by the reviews for this book. And so he like updates.
Is he trying to be Chuck Tingle?
He updates the book with, no, but similar vein.
Okay.
He updates the book when people leave him bad reviews. And like the review is like part of the book now.
That's interesting.
Wow.
So that was your weirdest, correct?
That's my weirdest.
Okay, that's not the one that made you lose faith in humanity.
No.
Okay.
There's this one author. She's kind of racist, so I don't recommend her anyways. But even if she wasn't racist, she wrote the worst book I've ever read. So I hate her. So there was this motorcycle club. All right, so far we're on track. I don't mind reading motorcycle clubs. And the president of the motorcycle club is also like into daddy kink. Okay, I mean that's not really my thing, but again, I've read it. It's fine, whatever. Except the author and the love interest did not understand what daddy kink was. So instead, we have this like 19-year-old girl. He's like in his 40s, whatever. All right, so already having issues. Well, also at the beginning of the book, his wife and daughter are murdered in front of him after being assaulted in front of him, right?
That's
So
a
then
boner killer.
all
Why is this
these
in a
years
romance novel?
It's the literal worst thing I've ever read. So I'm gonna skip a lot of details, but he gets like this 19-year-old girl, right? And that's like the age that his daughter was when she died.
Oh no.
And
I
this
don't like where
girl
this is
just
going.
reminds him so much of his daughter.
No,
Except he really wants to bang her. So he like projects his dead daughter onto her. And then there's like all these things that happen. He takes her back to her rapist by accident. There's all these things. And then he's like torturing her. All these things. Worst book ever.
Yeah, this is
like
the opposite of a turn on.
I will just trigger him into remembering his daughter by using this baby voice. And then he will feel the need to protect me. And then that works. And then they live happily ever after.
What book is this? Who is this author?
It's Coin by Kay Webster, who,
Oh,
again, did
yeah.
racism and also has done a fake incest thing. But whatever, regardless of that, worst book I've ever read. So,
Yeah.
I hate her.
Wow. Yeah, all
Wow.
of that was like, that's like traumatizing to even hear.
Yeah, that's like the opposite of, like the exact opposite of what I would think of as sexy.
Right. It was one of those books too where
And
I
it's
kept
not
being
funny.
like, okay,
No.
like that was awful, but we're probably done with the dark parts of the book, right? No. No, we were not. So that was
This makes me
unfortunate.
miss the Russian Tetris
Tetris
blocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, like, I like a Jessa Kane or like a Mink
Right.
daddy kink, but again, it's always very like over the
Well,
top. It's no,
and
I've
daddy
never.
kink and
Yeah.
age play are different from each other, and I'm not into age play at all. But even
Yeah.
age play is not
Is different.
necessarily
Well,
incest fantasies. Like that's not what that is.
No.
That's not what it means.
yeah.
So
I
Which is
get that
so
there's
interesting.
some.
Whenever I hear women talk about like daddy kinks, I'm always like, it's not that weird in the gay community. Like that is
Right.
everywhere. So
Right.
like every time everybody's like, oh, these daddy kinks, I'm like, huh. Just open
Right.
Grindr.
Right. And like a good
Well, but
daddy
it's like,
kink,
it's
it has
not like
nothing to do
Pedro
with that.
Pascal daddy. Like,
Right.
that's not what you're describing. Because, like, that, yeah,
Right.
like, that's great.
That's like
Love it.
horrifying. I would be very concerned for some people if they picked up that book for like their mental health.
Right.
For some people who've experienced, there's so many different kinds of trauma you can experience that if you read that book, you would then be like in a very bad place. Yeah, that definitely absolute worst.
Well, yeah, there's even more horrific details in the book that I won't even tell you, but they're bad.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah. Well, we already weren't fans of Kay Webster, but
That's
I'm
right.
going to give 2 big thumbs down for that.
Right.
Roger, do you have a fun one to end it?
I mean,
Any
not
more
the
like
first one that comes to
tentacles or
mind.
anything?
No, the thing that I hate most in sex scenes is when it's like rape or very
Mhm.
clearly sexual assault.
Yeah.
Like that's instantly just like not fun times. I remember because it's still Mara's fault, and I will forever blame her when I was like, I'm curious about trying sci-fi romance, and she recommends to me Ice Planet Barbarians, and I read chapter 1, and because the girl cries,
I
she gets like
I don't believe that
immediately.
I'm gonna look up this conversation. That would not be what I would recommend to someone who just wanted to try sci-fi romance.
It sure is. I'm gonna find it and I'll
I'm
screenshot
finding
it.
it right now.
And
Keep going.
so she cries, and the aliens don't like her crying because they don't like loud sounds. So they
Because
assault
they're
her.
the bad guys.
Yes, but that is not a good time. And then it goes from there to the
No.
girl is asleep and wakes up to some strange man on a strange planet performing cunnilingus on her. Like,
Now
what
that
is
is-
this book?
That is
Listen,
Dubcon. That is
her
different.
mate. He was just like immediate mate.
With his gross vibrating parasite? Absolutely not.
It's called a QD.
It's not cute. It's gross.
It is a bit odd. However, like that was one of those things where like it doesn't bother me because that hero very clearly by the end of the book, it's not like he goes around assaulting women or enjoys like belittling women or anything like that. But it is like a dubious consent, like a what are you doing type thing. But
So
I was into
I will concede that I did say Ruby Dixon.
it.
However, I want to caveat that when you sent this to me, I was on a plane with no sleep to London. So I was not fully in my right mind. I also specifically gave you a content warning about the enslavement piece of this. So I will not take
enslavement did not in my brain read girl cries so she gets sexually assaulted.
Are you not aware of what happens to people who are enslaved who are women?
Apparently not.
Okay, I'm sorry I didn't spell out to you that horrible things happen to women when they are enslaved.
No, because I even brought it up to you, and then you were like, "Oh, I didn't remember that happened in this book. I like book 2 and after better."
Yeah, that's probably right. I do caveat that I was literally so sleep deprived and throwing up on the London Metro. So this is probably not. So I will take the L. I did not guide you well there because I really should have told you when she purrs or the court. I shouldn't have even brought up Ice Planet Barbarians because that is not an entry level sci-fi romance. I concede I was wrong there.
So, you know how they say that sometimes if you have COVID, you get like a little bit of brain fog? There's a little part of me that's like, I just feel like this is the best time to talk about all of these books. It's when like I'm a little
because then you don't have to remember
fuzzy.
the book, whatever by K whoever. That mess.
Yeah, that was horrible. I'm gonna just choose to think from this conversation about the haunted vagina. That will stay with. There's several things we've talked about today that are gonna stay with me for a while. That and the Serbius for sure.
Well, just Roger's like depicting what's going on.
The sumo squat was really a highlight for me.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, and then picturing this gigantic house-sized Serbius dog trying to fuck this normal human-sized woman on the
like, how does that even,
driveway.
if we're ignoring the fact, even if we can wrap our minds around getting all 3,
Yeah,
how did it hit? Was
Like-
it just the tip?
well,
And
if it's a
I
house-sized
don't
creature, like
understand.
these dogs have got to be the size of a human, right? Like,
Yeah. If you watch my worst books of the year video, I do have props which I use.
So
to
really,
illustrate.
my book worst sex scene and your book worst sex scene are kind of the same because it was the girl from my book that did that with Cerberus.
Apparently.
oh my gosh, match made in heaven. We need to get those two crazy kids together.
Wild times. Wild times.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
indeed. This was fun.
We covered a lot of ground.
He did.
I just, I know that because I am the one that started Worldhoppers, I know a lot of the people that come to this channel watch my videos, and there's a part of me that's like, man, this is very different from my my video that I did for this.
Yeah.
So if anybody, I just know for like more of the romance world, this probably isn't that bizarre. But I feel like if you come from the fantasy world,
Right.
you're like, what the heck? So hopefully everybody was thoroughly entertained. I don't know if this is going to stay monetized. So once again, we have merch.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
You would be surprised. You can tell, especially because it's a book channel. And if you have a
That's
consistent track record of not being too crazy,
I mean, I am pretty crazy. I think, you know,
yeah.
when
You
people think
censor
L,
everything because you're like
I know.
so worried about what if my old violin students see this
I know.
or my
Oh man, I
know.
really hope none of your old violin students stay
I
tuned in for this one.
also really, I don't think any of them would because, you know, I used a different name on the internet than my real
Right.
name. So, because I started my, we don't need to get into this, but just I started my channel when I was still teaching. There was one time one of my older students, before she was going to college, she was talking about, because she was going to be majoring in music and whatnot. And so she was like, we were prepping her college auditions and stuff. And so she was telling me about getting ready to go to college, and then it was really funny because she was like, my roommate does like booktube or something. I guess it's where you like talk about books online. And I was just like,
And you were
oh
like,
yeah,
so weird. Who would do that?
I was like, oh yeah, that's really cool. I was like, oh my gosh, I hope that she never finds me, but at least she's based, you know, she's an adult at this point. She's definitely an
Right.
adult.
Yeah.
But like some of the like the little ones I teach, I'm just like, I hope you forget my existence and you're like, I used to play violin and you just don't know. But yeah, I do think about like the little ones. So
We're happy to formally
I've never
help.
thought about that, but now I'm horrified if any of my like old Taekwondo students.
yeah. Yeah, like the sweet little innocent.
Or their mom. All of a sudden I get a DM from some mom.
I do
I'll
not
blame
use
Ellen
my
for
real
it,
name
too.
on the internet so that I never have to worry about being in a meeting and somebody like, you know, Terry
Right.
from supply chain asking me
Right.
why I read that horrible Naga book.
Right. Yeah.
I don't want to have that conversation. So
Me either.
yeah.
My parents
Like
would be horrified if they knew how I turned out, but they don't.
Oh,
so.
I feel like my mom, it would be really, I would have fun showing her this video. I think it'd be funny. She'd be like, oh my gosh. But I did a video way back in the day where I was showing her some of the Chuck Tingle dinosaur erotica covers.
We didn't bring him up, but I would say that Chuck Tingle is like the patron saint of this episode. Like yeah.
Isn't he writing like a serious mystery novel now or something?
I have a copy of this horror novel he is writing. It is called Camp Damascus. I will let you know how it is. I'm like, it sounds legitimately good, so I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I actually do really want to know how that goes.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this was, like I said, this was fun. Aside from the one horrifying thing that Heather described, the rest of this was very entertaining and silly and a good time. And then that was not, but otherwise it was a lot of fun.
But truly the worst. I mean, like what you described was very bad. So.
It really was
that is no longer romance at all.
No, yeah, it was horrific. But anyway,
and if you find that romantic, I have concerns and questions.
Yeah, romance is really pushing the definition of the word romantic, I think.
I mean, I was
what
like,
it can bear.
I literally want all of the male characters in this book to die a horrible graphic death at the end. Actually, you did not win in the romance department. Like, I would cheer if they died. So that's not the goal.
Yeah, I've read a couple books where I was like, I really hope this is the backstory to you leaving this man after he is, you know, his life is destroyed. And you finding somebody who actually appreciates you. So maybe that's how you can think about it, is that someday he's going to die a horrific death and she's going to find someone great to help her process her trauma.
I can only hope.
Well, on that note, don't forget to let us know the flavor of donut that best suits fun games involving people's bodies. But anyway, thanks everybody for watching. We hope you have a lovely rest of your day. We'll see you later. Bye.